Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria and we have a bit of a location change today. I had my bed all made and everything because I was taking Instagram pictures, so I had like the lighting set up over here to take Instagram pictures, so I figured I would just film over here. So hopefully that's okay and that we don't mind this background. But today we are going to be doing a video recommending some books that all follow the same couple. So it's series that all follow the same couple. I have series of 3, I have series of more than 3, so we are just going to get into them and recommend some series that follow the same couple. So I am usually not a huge fan of this kind of thing. I like my books to be like standalones and then like interconnected series. That tends to be my favorite, but I do have a few that I really love that are all that are our series that follow the same couple that I think deserve recommending. So I actually have a previous video for their recommendation video for this, so I will link that one down below if you haven't seen it, but this video is going to feature entirely new books from that video. Like, these will be different ones, so I'm gonna get into them. So the first series that I have is the Guild series by Tate James. This is a 3-book series and it is MFM. In book 1 of the series, the heroine is a honey trap. That is her job. She's an assassin and she's really beautiful, and she's sent to trap men into spilling their secrets and then killing them, murdering them. And that is her job. She works for this organization called the Guild and she loves that job. And in this first book, she is sent to be a honey trap for this guy, and they end up having a romance. In the series, it ends up being a romance between the heroine, the guy that she's sent to honey trap, and then also another member of the Guild who's also an assassin who the heroine is friends with, and that guy's name is Leon, and I can't remember what the other hero's name is, the one that she sent to honey trap. But this series is so interesting and so fun. Book 1 is definitely my least favorite in the series, but I still gave it 4 stars, and I still really recommend starting the series because book 2 and book 3, I gave them each, I think, 4.5 or 5 stars. I can't remember, but both of them were fabulous and I could not put down this series. It was so addicting, especially between book 2 and book 3. I read them back to back and I loved them. The heroine in this one is just incredibly badass. I mean, she's an assassin, so of course she is. And then the 2 heroes despise each other, like 100% despise each other. And I have read a couple of like reverse harems or MMFs where the 2 heroes don't get along and they don't want to be part of like sharing, but in this one, it is serious hate. They hate each other, but they end up having to get over that fact because they both love the heroine so much and she refuses to choose. And even at the end of like the series, when the HEA, they still like don't like each other, but they have this reluctant friendship because they both love the heroine so much and they refuse to give her up. And it was so interesting and intriguing. There's a like suspense type plot in this one where they're trying to like track down who is trying to kill the heroine, and the whole Guild organization is just so freaking cool, and I had so much fun with this one, so I would highly recommend it. The next one that I have is entirely different than the Guild series because it is the Grip trilogy. This one is by Kennedy Ryan. The first book is a prequel like novella, but you very much have to read it in order to like understand the rest of them, and it is where they first meet each other. So this one is about Grip and Bristol, and in the prequel flow they meet each other and they have this like really instant connection, but Grip does something that makes Bristol feel very betrayed. And so then the next book, which is Grip, picks up many years after that first meeting, and Grip is a rapper and Bristol is like a music manager. She like helps run this like, I don't even know if it's like a recording studio, but she is like a music manager and she manages both Grip and her brother. And Grip and Bristol, they have this like amazing attraction to each other. They have this connection, but Bristol is still a little like put off by what Grip did. Grip is in a relationship with somebody else, but this series is the most like epic love story, and each book is like tear your heart out, angsty, emotional, so much going on in these books, but it's fabulous and I love it so much. It is a interracial romance. Also, Bristol is a white woman and she comes from money, and Grip is a black man, and they throughout the series deal with some really serious racist issues because she is a white woman and he is a black man, especially because Grip has made it big as a rapper and now is going with Bristol, like he's with Bristol, and so a lot of his black friends and family members feel like he's betraying black women by getting rich and then being with a white woman, and they go through a serious lot. They deal with so much racism, but their romance is undeniable. They are literally soulmates. They belong together so much, and it's fabulous. Trigger warning really look up trigger warnings in the third book, because seriously, I was like a little unprepared for it, and it's really emotional, and would highly recommend looking up trigger warnings. But the book series is rip your heart out in a good way, emotions, and it's so freaking beautiful. And Kennedy Ryan is like the most gorgeous writer in the world. The way that she is able to write her books and make you like feel the emotions between the two characters is just stunning, and she is fabulous. The next one that I have is actually a reverse harem series, and it is the Witsec series by Ashley and Rostek. Rostek? I think that's how you say it. Rostek? I think that's right. And this series is a 4-book series about a heroine whose entire family was murdered. She had a twin sister and her parents, and they all 3 got murdered by this guy who is stalking the heroine, and she ends up escaping. She survives, and she has to go into witness protection, and she is sent to move away and live in this new town. And she is over 18 years old but still hasn't finished high school, and so she is a senior in high school, and she lives by herself in this house that she owns, and she ends up having a romance with the 4 brothers who live next door to her. And this one was really interesting because it was the first reverse harem that I had read where all of the heroes were related. I thought that was really interesting and different than a lot of the previous ones that I've read. I've read ones where like there were like brothers in the harem, but then there were also other guys in the harem, but this was the first one where all of the guys were related. But I found it so interesting. Each of the brothers is so different, and there is one set of twins, which I loved. That was really cool. And then there was 2 older brothers that were older than the twins, and one of them was like a grumpy older brother, which was fabulous, and then one of them was like kind of like a gay golden retriever energy brother, and it was just so interesting, so cool. I loved the suspense plot. It really kept me so interested because the heroine is trying to like stay safe from the guy who's hunting her, but at the same time wants him to be caught, and so she's like going back and forth on like whether she should like let him know where she is so that she can catch him and that like the cops can find him and that she doesn't have to like live in fear anymore. But it was so intriguing, so like captivating. It kept me so interested the entire time, and I would really recommend it. The next one that I have is slightly cheating because it's technically a duology, but I would highly recommend reading the prequel novella, which is why I'm including it, and that is The Loser's Duet. And so this one, the first book, I'm calling The Dare. Like The Dare, I think you should read it. I would highly recommend reading it. I was really not going to read it when I first started The Loser's Duet, and then in like after chapter 1 of The Loser's Duet, it has this like announcement where it's like the next events take place after the events of The Dare, and I like started reading it, and then I was like really intrigued by what happened in The Dare, and so I went and read The Dare, and I would really recommend reading it. This series is about this heroine who is in high school and she bullies the hell. She's like the popular mean girl, and she bullies the heck out of these 5 guys who are known as just the losers. And those, I think there's 5 guys, are really close. They're like a found family element. They're all like sort of dating each other, so there's like aspect in this book. But in the dare, she ends up having a sexual encounter with the losers, and then in the actual losers duet, it takes place multiple years later, like 4 or 5 years later, and the heroine is back in her hometown, and her car ends up breaking down, and she ends up forming this deal with the losers, who happen to own a mechanic shop, where they will fix her car and she will pay with sexual favors, basically. And they end up forming a romance. And this book series is so spicy. Like, the spice in it is fabulous, though. It's really well written and good. And the connection that they create in especially part 2 in the losers duet, it's so well done. I adored this. Each character loves each other so strongly. The found family aspect is just like top tier, and they've all been through some like really rough shit, and so I loved to see them come together, to see them form this family, to always have each other's backs and be looking out for each other. And it's just like a true love between all of them, and I think it's so fabulous. And this one too had like a tiny little bit of like a kind of like, I would guess, call it a suspense plot, because of the like rough stuff that happened in one of the guys' life when he was younger and when he was in high school. So that is like coming back to haunt him a little bit. And so it was just so fabulously done, so well written. I will definitely be reading more from Harley LaRue because of how well written I felt that this book series was. And I would really highly recommend it. Like, it's very popular, but it took me a long time to pick it up because I felt intimidated by it. But I had no reason to be intimidated by it. It really is so freaking good. The next one that I have is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This is a unfinished series. Only book 1 and 2 are out. So I think this is the this is the first one that I've talked about that isn't completed, but I really like this. This book I gave 5 stars. It is a fantasy romance series about a heroine named Violet, who in this world there are these different quadrants, and she is end up forced into the writer's quadrant, which is basically like the military quadrant. That shadowing is really bad, so hold it on this side. She's end up forced into like the military quadrant by her mother, who happens to be a military general. And in this quadrant, they are sent to Basgiath War College, which is this crazy war college where they are seriously tested, and it is incredibly violent, incredibly dangerous. Like, a lot of people die during the college experience, but in the outcome of that college, you get to become a dragon rider if you survive. If you get chosen, you get to become a dragon rider. And Violet really seriously thinks she's going to die in this writer's quadrant because she has a chronic condition which causes joint problems, and so she has really a lot of chronic pain. She has a lot of like dislocation of her joints, and her body is just not built for a lot of the things that the writers have to deal with. But I really loved Violet. I am so sorry about the lighting. I really am. It's just really bad. So Violet has so much that she has to deal with, and I really loved this. And then in this, she has a romance with a guy named Xaden Ryerson, who is actually somebody that she thinks is going to try and kill her. I'm just gonna put this down because I can't hold it anymore. She actually thinks that Xaden is going to try and kill her. Xaden's father was the guy who started and like ran the rebellion that happened a couple of years ago, and her mother, Violet's mother, was responsible for killing Xaden's father, and so she thinks that Xaden's going to try and kill her, but they end up having a romance, and I loved their romance so freaking much. And this doesn't end on an HEA, obviously, because it is book 1 in a series, but I love the way that this book went with the romance. I did read book 2 in this series, which is called Iron Flame, and while I didn't love it as much as book 1, I still really recommend the series as a whole, and am going to definitely continue when book 3 comes out. I found book 2 to be a little slower and not as much action as this one, but it is book 2 in a series, and it is setting up the future books in the series, so I did understand why it did go the way it went. The second half of Iron Flame, or like the last fourth of Iron Flame, was super, super interesting and did really make me excited to read the third book in the series, so I still would highly recommend the series as a whole, and I'm going to continue. The last one that I have is another unfinished series, and that is Bonded by Thorns, or the Beasts of Briar series. This is book 1, and in this book 1, it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and it's Why Choose. So the heroine in this one lives in this village where she's thought of as like the super weird girl. Her father has spent his time telling the villagers that his wife, the heroine's mother, was abducted by fairies. And so they all think that he's crackpot nuts. They think that she is weird because they think her father's weird. And one day her father goes missing, and so she goes into the woods searching for him, and she ends up stumbling through these rose bushes that take her to the fairy realm. And she, where her father is being held captive by these fae princes in this castle, and she shows up and is like, take me instead, I want to trade places with my father, and she ends up switching places with her father so her father can go free and being held captive by these 4 fae princes that live in this castle. And there is a curse on the castle that these 4 fae princes are dealing with, and she ends up having a, what I'm assuming is going to be a romance between all 4 of the princes and possibly a 5th person, we don't know yet, and then the heroine, and it was so, so good. So I have read this book in the series, and I have read book 2 in the series, and I really, really loved both of them. Book 3 recently came out in December, but I haven't gotten to that one yet, but it's on my TBR. I am definitely going to be reading it. I just talked about it on my books that are on my downloaded on KU video, so I'll link that down below if you haven't seen it, but it's one of the ones that are at the top of my TBR, so I will be reading book 3, and I don't know how many books are going to be in this series, but I would guess maybe 5, but I'm very, very excited about how this series is going, where it's going to go, if that potential 5th hero is going to be included in the harem, and I just love the way that the curse is talked about in this. I think it's so, so interesting, and learning about the different fairy realms is just so, so cool. I always love a fantasy romance like this, so would highly recommend this series. That is the last one that I have to talk about in this video though, so I hope that you liked it. I hope that you can find a series that you can start reading, but let me know down in the comments below if you read any of these series, how you feel about them, or if you know of any more recommendations of series that follow the same couple that I should pick up. But that's going to be it for this video, so like this video if you liked it, subscribe, stick around, see more content from me, and I hope that you have the absolute best day.